Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's warm, fit, and healthy. Trying to figure out how to celebrate uh, Thanksgiving in an era, the year of the apocalypse. I sure don't mean to make light of that situation. I'm glad everybody could join us this morning. Finishing up a couple little loose ends here, and we'll be ready to go in just a minute or so. Good morning, Brian. Mike, how are you doing today? Dries and Andy, my goodness. Andy, both.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, good morning, mi amigos. How's everybody doing today? I'm always glad that you can join us. I wish we could do it in person, but we'll take this. We got a lot. We're getting better at this Mayberry television stuff, I hope. And we got a lot for you this morning. We're going to be talking books and books. I got a little bit of an Old West show and tell for you. And a few other things, a few surprises here and there. Well, let's see. And I'm going to be introducing you to two very amazing men. They were larger than life lawmen when Arizona was still a territory. And one tackled a vicious outlaw gang single-handedly, and the other lost use of an arm in a gun battle and still continued to confront outlaws for decades. And their story really surpasses the wildest on-screen Western epics, and yet somehow they're relatively unknown today. And of course, as this is Jim Hinckley's America, there is a Route 66 connection to one of these fellas. And of course, let's see, we also have our weekly trivia contest and Frontier Era show and tell for you. Before I kick things off this morning, I sure want to give a shout out to the boys of the road crew for our theme song. If you need some road trip inspiration, take a listen to their music at roadcrew66.com. It's quite impressive, to say the very, very least. Nolan, Mr. Stoltz, I do apologize for the delay, but he was our contest winner last week. Your book and pen, it will be en route real shortly, and then we will get your gift certificate to the Roadrunner Lodge going out email here pretty quick. And so with that said, let's start with our trivia contest. If you would like a copy of 100 Things to Do on Route 66, defaced with my signature, the first correct answer wins a copy. What is the first Route 66 community to be bypassed with realignment of that highway? Didn't say it was going to be easy, now did I? Okay, let's get to the books. I started a service recently, and this is made possible through crowdfunding initiative. It's supported in part by the crowdfunding initiative on the Patreon platform. Authors can send me books, and I'll give an honest review. I haven't got these up on the website yet, but I intend to do that this week. As you can see by my inability, I had mentioned last week we were going to take a On the Road with Jim program out at the Mojave Prescott Toll Road, Fort Beale, and a 1914 highway. That didn't happen. So as you can see, the well-laid plans of men and all that stuff. This book, Journey to the West, A Great American Adventure on the National Old Trails Road, a novel by Jim Shield. Pretty well done, well researched, kind of interesting. This is a pretty good, quick little read, and it's one I can kind of really recommend here. This one by Benjamin Mollenauer, Lure of the Traveling Man. It was an interesting story, but a little too wordy for me. It's not a bad, that's not to say it's a bad book, it's just, I found it just a little heavy in, the flow. This one is a little tough to come by, but if you get a chance, Motoring West, Automobile Pioneers 1900 to 1909. This is just a reprint of articles and journal entries from motorists during these years in the American West. I've been using this a lot for research. For example, on our crowdfunding site, as my way of saying thank you, I've been writing exclusive content, and one of those is chronicling Alexander Winton's attempt to drive cross-country to be the first person to pilot an automobile across the United States in 1901. And some of the material's been taken from Motoring West, if you get a chance. Their copies are a little hard to come by, and they can be spendy, but it's a great, great book. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's start with the story of Jefferson Davis Milton. With a name like that, it might not surprise you to learn that he was born to a family of Confederate sympathizers in 1861. His father was a Confederate general, John Milton, and his father had been governor of Florida at one time. At the age of 15, Milton moved west to Texas, and he worked on a relative's mercantile store. And then he signed on with a ranch and learned wrangling, the life of the cowboy, and how to use a gun. Became very proficient with all of those skills. Mr. Jefferson Davis Milton wanted a bit of excitement, like a lot of young men. And so on July 27, 1880, he applied to become a Texas Ranger in Austin, Texas. But the requirement was that all Rangers be at least 21 years of age. So he's just simply lied about it. Rangers had to furnish their own firearms. Jeff chose a Colt 45 single action and an 1873 44 Winchester carbine. We'll talk more about guns in a little bit. I got a great show and tell for you. In his 3 years as a ranger, he patrolled the Big Bend country. This was really a haven for border runners and the worst of the outlaws. And he did this quite often alone. And he developed a reputation for fairness, for toughness, and for just being absolutely fearless. After leaving the Texas Rangers, Milton headed to New Mexico, where he homesteaded a small ranch and worked as a deputy sheriff in various counties. And then he accepted a position of cattle detective on a special commission from the governor of New Mexico Territory. And his mild and friendly manner earned him many, many friends in the New Mexico Territory. And his tenacity and fearlessness encouraged rustlers to relocate their trade to Arizona or Texas. In 1884, he accepted appointment as Deputy U.S. Marshal, Southern New Mexico Territory. And then in 1887, he became Collector of Customs. The Collector of Customs, Joseph Nogfin of El Paso, hired Milton to patrol the border between Nogales and El Paso. Smugglers of Chinese laborers were flooding the Southwest. And after that, he alternated between working as a deputy, horse trading, prospecting, and as an Indian trader. And then when the Southern Pacific Railroad began having troubles with theft, violent passengers, and robbery on the El Paso to Mexico City train, they hired Milton, even though he had a broken ankle at the time. When El Paso became a lawless town where saloons and bordellos operated 24/7, and there was a murder almost every day, the city councilman offered Milton the position of chief of police. And within 6 months, the town was transformed. He even sent the psychotic and murderous John Wesley Hardin packing. His next job was as a Wells Fargo Express messenger from Benson, Arizona to Guaymas, Mexico. And it was in that position in Fairbanks, Arizona in 1900 that he encountered Bert Alvarez and Bill Stiles. They were Cochise County deputies that moonlighted as outlaws. They rode with Three-Fingered Jack Dunlop, Bravo Juan Yawas, and his brother. And they decided to target a Southern Pacific train with a Wells Fargo strongbox and safe. What they did not know, that Milton was on that train as the guard. Well, the outlaws posed as drunken cowboys, and they approached the train when it stopped for water. And Milton stood in the door as freight was loaded and unloaded. And when they got close enough, the outlaws opened fire. Milton was struck twice in the arm, and unable to return fire because of innocent people, he backed into the car, fashioned a tourniquet, tossed the strongbox keys into the night, and picked up a shotgun. The outlaws had assumed Milton was down, and that was a fatal mistake. When the smoke cleared, Three-Fingered Jack was mortally wounded, Yawas was dead, and the others were soon arrested as Milton identified the deputies. And Yawas' brother was found mortally wounded several miles from town. Milton recovered, but lost most use of his left arm. And that isn't the end of the story, though. In 1904, he was commissioned by President Theodore Roosevelt to the position of mounted Chinese inspector. And by himself, most of the time, alone, he patrolled the Mexican border from Nogales to San Diego. Then he also did some prospecting, and then he accepted a presidential assignment to escort convicted anarchists back to Russia. And then in 1924, he became the first officer appointed to the U.S. Immigration Service Border Patrol, a position he held for 8 years. Milton retired to Tombstone, Arizona, where he did some mining, and then in Tucson. He died in 1947. You talk about larger than life and tougher than a bag of nails. How's that for a story for you? Hey, let's do some show and tell. Let me show you this. This is an 1891 single-action Army 6-shot revolver. Now, I don't know much about the gun's history, this particular gun, from the fact that it's been in my wife's family since at least the early 20s. And that leads to a bit of speculation, as my father-in-law was born in Tombstone, and his grandfather was sheriff in Cochise County around 1920. These guns were popular with law enforcement, and when we were cleaning up my mother-in-law's place, I found the revolver in a box with some old handcuffs and some other stuff pertaining to law enforcement. Thought-provoking that that gun might have been used in Tombstone. Now this one, this is a Remington rolling block. These, this is a breech-loading rifle produced by Remington. This is a .45-70 caliber rifle. These were produced from about 1863 into early 20th century. They were produced by Remington and Sons. These rifles saw service with George Armstrong Custer's 7th Cavalry at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and of course they were popular with Native American warriors during the Indian Wars on the western frontier. It was extremely popular with buffalo hunters. This is a saddle carbine, short carbine. In 1867, the United Kingdoms of Sweden and Norway adopted this as the standard military rifle. And by the 1880s, this was the #1 military rifle in the world. I have no history of it, and I would never shoot the damn thing. Both of these guns are just show pieces. They're museum pieces. They're not much good for anything else. Okay, that takes us to our next story. Commodore Perry Owens. Now, I posted pictures of these men yesterday. Milton Davis in his youth and his old age, and I posted these on the Jim Hinckley's America Facebook page. And Commodore Perry Owens had red hair, flowing red hair. That was his kind of thing when he was younger. He was born July 29th, 1852, and he was named after Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry, a United States naval hero in the War of 1812. I understand that it's a kind of a little bit of conjecture, but he was apparently an extremely abusive home situation. So at age 13, he ran away from home and went to work with buffalo hunters for the railroad. And in the process, he developed extraordinary skills as a marksman with a rifle. And that gave him quite a reputation. Owens was also ambidextrous, and he became proficient as a crack shot with both hands. He would offer and entertain friends and make money on bets by shooting cans across the pasture with alternating shots from his left and right hands. After the buffalo hunting episode, he worked on ranches in Oklahoma and New Mexico and continued west into the Arizona territory. In 1881, he was working as a ranch foreman for James Houck. Houck, Arizona, a little siding along Old Route 66, named after Mr. Houck. He worked at Navajo Springs, Arizona, northeast of present-day Holbrook. The turning point in his life came when he was nominated sheriff of Apache County. This was before Apache County was split into 2 counties, so he was responsible for patrolling several thousand square miles of western territory. After taking office in January of 1887, Owens was assigned 14 bench warrants. These included Mormon gunman Lot Smith, former Tombstone badman Ike Clanton, a veteran of the OK Corral shootout with Wyatt Earp, and rustler Andrew Arnold Cooper, the alias for Andy Blevins, a bad family that had come out of Texas. They were involved in the Pleasant Valley War and all kinds of mischief. Well, it was the Blevins incident that earned Perry a place in the pantheon of legendary frontier lawmen. Short version. On September 4th, 1887, Sheriff Owens heard that Andy was in Holbrook, and he rode out to the Blevins College in Holbrook to serve the outstanding warrant for rustling. Inside that house, what he didn't know was that Cooper was there, the eldest Blevins brother, the younger brothers John and Sam Houston Blevin, the brother's mother and John's wife Eva, their infant son, a family friend, and house guest Mose Roberts, another gunman, and several children. When he went to the door, he had his Winchester cradled in his arm, holding his gun like this. So he'd be cradling his rifle in his arms. Sheriff Owens knocked on the door, and when Andy Blevins answered with a pistol in his hand, the lawman told him to come out of the house, stating that he had a warrant for his arrest. Well, instead, Blevins tried to close the door. Owens dropped the rifle to his hip and shot Blevins through the door, hitting him in the abdomen. Andy's half-brother, John Blevins, fired back through the door, missed Owens, killed Andy's saddle horse. Owens kicked through the door and fired, hitting John Blevins twice. Owens then backed back way into the yard so he could see three sides of the house. And seeing Andy Blevins moving inside, he fired a third round through the wall of the cottage, striking Andy in the hip. Mose Roberts jumped out of a side window, taking a couple wild shots at Owens before trying to run off. Owens dropped him in his tracks with a bullet that passed through his back and out through his heart. 15-year-old Sam Houston Blevins ran out the front door with his brother Andy's Colt revolver, began firing on the sheriff. Owens turned and fired, killing the boy instantly. According to reports, the whole incident took less than 5 minutes. Pretty amazing stuff. Pretty wild and woolly characters. Tell me that's not a movie of the week in either one of these guys. Now here's the Route 66 connections with Mr. Owens. The Blevins house is a private residence, and it's still there in Holbrook. It's north of the depot, on the other side of the tracks, about 4 or 5 blocks off Route 66 at Joy Nevin Avenue and 2nd Street. There's a monument to the gunfight stands out front. It's such an historic landmark in Holbrook that Bruce Babbitt, he chose to be sworn in front of that monument as Arizona's Attorney General back in 1975. Shortly after the turn of the century, Owens relocated to Seligman, Arizona. He bought property, built a house, and opened a general store and a saloon. The saloon and store are gone, but Owens' house still stands a block off Route 66 to his private property. That takes me to the Route 66 navigation app. It has been my distinct pleasure to work with Marian Pavel and assist with development of the point of interest file to enhance the app, to ensure that a traveler gets the absolute best from their Route 66 odyssey and adventure. And I've been working with him to add places with information. And one of the places we've added was the Owens house in Seligman. This ensures that the Route 66 navigation has to be one of the ultimate Route 66 travel tools. And you can find that at route66navigation.com. From books to my speaking engagements and programs such as this, one of my goals is to enhance adventures and add context. So I was really excited to help with the app's point of interest file. And of course, telling people where to go is my specialty. So the app is like using Route 66 navigation on Route 66. It's kind of like having me as your travel guide, but without having to listen to me beat my gums for 2,000 miles. Let's see, where are we at here? I want to give a shout out to the wonderful Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri, a sponsor of this program. On any Route 66 adventure, you gotta stay one night at least at the Wagon Wheel. My tip is to ask for the room with a jacuzzi. And then when it comes time for dinner, now that's the challenge in Cuba. There's so damn many good restaurants in Cuba, it's hard to choose. Missouri Hick, the Four-Way, Frisco's, Rivera Maya. And, when you travel Route 66, a lot of times the magic is broken, if you will, because you got to check into a Best Western, Holiday Inn Express. But fortunately, places like the Wagon Wheel exist, so you can maintain that sense of timelessness, that magic where the past and the present blend seamlessly. And it's the proprietors that really enhance that. And you can find that now, fortunately. It's still scarce, but you can find it. Wagon Wheel Motel. Of course, the legendary Blue Swallow Motel in Tucumcari. Motel Safari, Roadrunner Lodge. All great examples. Saga Motor Inn in Pasadena. Anyway. I also want to thank supporters of our crowdfunding initiative on the Patreon platform. Without you guys, a lot of this stuff just flat would not be possible. And And as my way of saying thank you, like I mentioned, every week um, I try to provide some exclusive content that I think you'll find really interesting. I want to give a shout out to our coffee cup mug of the sponsor of the week. You can see that I've got a few from the Blue Swallow Motel, California Route 66 Museum, and Route 66 State Park. It's a free service that I offer. Um, if you have a business museum that you want profiled on the program, send me a coffee mug, and no charge. But don't be afraid to stick a check or a little cash in there too, because my dearest friend and we're used to eating on a regular basis. This week, our coffee cup mug sponsor is the one and only Victoria Sugar Shack here in Kingman. I just was out there the other morning. This is my go-to place in Kingman. My dearest friend and I go out for a morning date. It's a bit of a Route 66 detour. It's out on Northern Avenue, but it's well worth the trip. And if you're a Route 66 traveler going to Las Vegas, here's a travel tip for you. Instead of going out Highway 93 from Kingman, take Stockton Hill Road north out of town. It's an incredibly scenic drive, almost the same distance, paved road. Goes out through the Joshua Tree Forest, past a big dry lake with the Surbat Mountains on one side, and then you can just loop back to Highway 93. And as a bonus, if you take Stockton Hill Road, one block off Stockton Hill Road on Northern Avenue is Victoria Sugar Shack. And they have excellent coffee, European-style coffee, as well as great breakfast sandwiches, delicious pastry, and all manner of goodies. They even got the keto. I'm not sure what that is, but keto-friendly, diet-friendly items. When I was out there on Thursday with my dearest friend for a little date morning, I had the Cruffin with raspberry filling, one of my favorites. And my dear friend, she enjoyed a strawberry croissant. Man, it's a fast half hour. I'm glad you guys enjoyed this. This is something I get a lot of requests for. They ask me not to let this go. We got enough bad news during the week, so we try to keep this light. We try to keep this going and just an escape, if you will, from the insanity. And like I say, I try to keep this as neutral as possible. But here's my parting thought of the day. This Thanksgiving, turn off the news, skip social media. Instead, focus on friends and family, whether you're together or not. And if you can't enjoy the day together, try Zoom. Try a phone call. Now's as good a time as any to learn if you're not familiar with Zoom. But no political talk, no conspiracy theories, only conversation about life, love, and this amazing country. Call a friend or a family member that you may have kind of parted ways with because of political views. And remember why they are an important part of your life. Hey, before I get this wrapped up, let me give a holler to see what kind of questions we got here this morning. Good morning, let's say Brian and Mike, Mr. Dries, all the way from Amsterdam. And like I said, Andy, it's a combination, knees and chair. Keith, good morning, sir. Frank, I'm glad things are doing well in Moline, Illinois. Miss Marion, well, thank you. Good morning to you as well. Mr. Fennessy, Miss Maggie, all the way from Michigan and Harley. Rob, how are you doing? Speaking of the Blue Swallow Motel. Mr. Nolan, how are you today from... Well. It does look close here. We have a couple winners, it looks like. I'm not much for hair splitting. But it looks like we have Dries Bessels and Frank Jameson. 1 minute apart, came up with the answer for our trivia contest. The first community bypassed by Route 66 realignment was Depew, Oklahoma, back in 1928. Frank and Dries, I'll send you both a book. You're right, Frank. Great minds think alike. Mr. Fennessy, I'll be talking to you real shortly here. Let's see. I'll get you the information, Val, on that the Owens house. I'll get you the exact Route 66 travel during the coronavirus. Boy, to be blunt, everybody out there needs help. They need support. The businesses are in trouble. Uh, but it's a great gambler special, to be blunt and honest. Um, be careful. Do not live in fear, but don't be stupid. Use common sense. If you're going to travel, think and be aware of the situation because things are really escalating. Thank you, Miss Maggie. Okay, Mr. Dries, I will do that. I will make sure Frank gets it. And I'll tell you what, we had a second one here real close, Mr. Fennessy. So I will mail a book to Frank, and I'll make it as a. How about if I make it as a Christmas present from Dries, and I'll also get one out to Mike Fennessy. You too, Keith. You guys have a great week and a happy Thanksgiving. Is there any questions we can ask before I kind of wrap this thing up a bit? Well, I'm not exactly sure when I will. I'm going to try for later today, but sometime this week I will try to get that live video for you. We'll go for a walkabout together. I'll take you along, and I'll go out and show you the Mojave Prescott Toll Road, an interesting 1914 highway. And I will also a little bit of Beale Springs area. And we'll try to do that today. It's supposed to be pretty warm today, but the next few days is supposed to kind of feel wintry here. You bet, guys. Truly my pleasure. Me amigos, thank you for joining us this morning, and I hope you enjoy this program. And I hope we can get together again next Sunday morning for another episode of Coffee with Jim. And please invite your friends. Let's make it a coffee party. And it looks like we kept this right at the 30-minute mark. So I guess with that, I need to probably. Thank you, Miss Maggie. I probably should say vaya con Dios, mi amigos, and not wear out my welcome. I hope everybody has a good week, and I hope everybody's fit and happy and healthy. My friends, take care. Like I say, we've got some new exclusive content coming up on our Patreon-based crowdfunding site. We're going to continue the story of Mr. Winton's amazing adventure in 1901. I've gotten some questions. Beer time. Dries, yes. Beer time. It's after 5. It's where was I going? Oh yeah, I've received a lot of questions about my books because I've had 19 published. Well, I just wrote some chapters for a new book be out next fall called Back Roads of the Great American West. And I am in discussion with Quattro Publishing for a book series, and we'll see where that goes. Other projects I've got going. I'm trying to figure out the intricacies of offering my presentations via Zoom. It's not exactly the same. I like interacting with people and the personal touch. Just not feasible right now. I'll be doing a presentation on Route 66 for the Rotary Club of El Paso via Zoom on December 14th, and in January for a group in Spokane. And probably, maybe we get past the apocalypse, it'll encourage some people to get out on the road and do a bit of travel. Friends, neighbors, thank you so very, very much for joining me this morning. It's always fun and exciting, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And if you got ideas, something you would like to discuss on a program, or a program you'd like to see, drop me a note. Until we meet again, mi amigos, vaya con Dios. Adios.